Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is 7 sketchy things about Leo. Sketchy kind of meaning the shadow aspect of the sign. If you are a Leo, it may not apply to you if you're of a higher vibrational level. Maybe a couple things you may identify with, but not all of them. And it's meant as entertainment, but also informative, because this isn't supposed to be a parody. I mean, there are shadow elements to every sign, and I'm doing every sign. So it's not like I'm picking on Leos by a long shot. Also, you may have noticed I didn't say Leo sun sign, because this energy can manifest if your moon is in Leo, Venus in Leo, Mars in Leo, rising Leo, in different ways. And for instance, if your rising sign is Leo, you may kind of go into default mode where you do some of these things, and then your, I was going to say your higher self kicks in, and you realize that you don't have to put on that false front. So anyway, number 1, egotistical, narcissistic. It's one of those things that is almost like a cliche that people accuse Leo of being narcissistic. And I'm using this term very lightly, because if someone has actually dealt with a true narcissist, it's not a joking matter, and it actually can happen with any sign. It's a severe, I think it's a severe psychological disorder where a person does not have empathy and they are excessively self-absorbed. And so they're going through life trying to get their needs met and completely walking all over other people, maybe trying to position themselves in a way that they have control over others. So we're talking about through career moves, through having children, where they find themselves in places where they can get their narcissistic supply, because they're energy vampires, is basically what I'm trying to say. Now, with the egotistical Leo, this can be more along the lines of always having to brag about their accomplishments, always having to show off what they've bought, and generally present themselves as having to be, number one, or successful. Let's just put that. I'm not going to, because I've already done Aries, and for Aries, there's a real need to be at the head of the pack. For Leo, it's just simply being the center of everyone's universe. So Facebook, for instance, is their playground, and maybe Instagram, where they can show off their fancy vacations, their newest possessions. And there's a real need to maintain an image. And I had mentioned Leo rising, giving an example of how this can apply in different positions of a person's astrological makeup. And for that, it's like, what's that expression? Keeping up appearances. So a person may be their life may be in shambles, but they will present themselves as being, the cream of the crop, and they're just having a grand old time. And meanwhile, there's a lot of chaos in their personal life, but they can give the illusion that everything is just so great. Okay. And one thing to note about that, which I think is actually a very good thing, is that Leo being a fire signs tend to be very positive thinkers. And so part of this is that feeling of like there are better days ahead. Even if I'm not really happy internally, I'm going to be, it's like the movie star who has to maintain that image. And they may be very sad inside, but they have to give the public what it wants. And so I don't think that that's an evil thing, and I don't think that that's really that bad unless they're so divorced from their real life that the image becomes everything, and that's when it can be a problem. But if you're, faking it until you make it, then that can be actually helpful in certain circumstances. And, it's funny, even though I was able to find negative traits of Leo, I still had to look online for the seventh one because I really think that Leo has a lot of wonderful qualities. So, and some of these almost seem like kind of redundant. Now, if you're dealing with an egotistical Leo person, and if this is like your partner, I think it's important to be very straightforward about your observations regarding their behavior. And you should give like specific examples of when they have done certain things and why that way of interacting with you or with other people is not good for anyone. And a Leo person who is not completely unreasonable is usually warm and, generous in and everything. They may feel like a sense of wounded pride if you're criticizing them, but if they have enough self-confidence to accept constructive criticism, they may, tone it down. But if the person really is a narcissist, then you have to realize this. And it's extremely difficult to change that behavior. I never say never. Some people say, no, you can never change a narcissist. But that's a little bit extreme as well. I would just say that a narcissist is somebody who is not necessarily committed to change, because that's their behavior is done in order because they need to have a feeling that they are everything to themselves. They probably never got the kind of acknowledgement that they needed growing up, and so they have to compensate, and it's like overcompensating, really. If you are a Leo, just Leo is a fixed sign, so there's a tendency towards stubbornness, and just admit it and move on, because you have so much to offer, and really kind of become more self-aware and know when you're doing this to other people. Number 2, full of lust. I had to get this out of the way because I've been saying this for a few signs. I think the lustiest signs are Aries, Taurus, and Leo. People would say, what about Scorpio? But Scorpio rules the 8th house of sex, but sex as a topic does not mean sex in excess as a behavior, and Scorpios like to keep under control. So I don't know that they're going to be excessive that way. Maybe excessive preoccupation, but not actual. I'm talking about doing the deed. And for Leo, when we talk about like sex addiction, and I'm not talking about sex addiction here unless it applies, but I'm just talking about being excessive about sex. That doesn't necessarily imply addiction. Maybe it does. But let's just talk about sex addiction. There are different motivating factors. One can be growing up with sexual abuse, and then that becomes kind of like the default position. And for other people, it can simply be that they are looking for attention. They're looking for, we call it ego gratification, feeling desirable. And so that could be a motivating factor why Leo is that way. And you look at Mick Jagger, who is a Leo, that's exhibit A of that type of behavior. Having said that, it doesn't mean that all Leos are like this, and it doesn't mean that a person can't change. It involves behavior modification and learning to relate to other, romantic interests in a higher way, meaning above bodily concerns, getting to know them personally. Number 3, show off, attention-getting behaviors, making an entrance. And that's kind of like, you could lump that in the category of being egotistical, but it's that, or maintaining an image. But that idea of, like, Leo is the natural performer, the ruler of the 5th house of creativity. And so there can be this regal air because, you know, associated with royalty, but taken to a ridiculous level, this can lead the Leo person to kind of strut around and really be an attention whore, where they are doing it in gratuitous ways. But what a Leo person should be doing, if they have a tendency to be like this, is to really explore your creativity if you're not doing so, because chances are you would make a wonderful actor or actress. And yes, I do use the term actress. I don't believe women should be called actors. And so that sense of drama can be put to good use. The reason that we do things is because we have certain interests in those areas and therefore a fascination with it. And there's nothing wrong with having those and kind of nurturing those talents and interests. The problem becomes when you substitute one thing for the other. Number 4, petty tyrant, bully. Leo is actually considered leadership material. And so you will see Leos at the head of their business, of a business like the CEO, or even running their own business, because they tend to be very creative. And it does take creativity to begin a business. And it takes those leadership skills to run it and to manage other people. When a Leo person is like more in their shadow than in the light, they will tend to stoop to more intimidating tactics, because a good leader does not need to, you know, instill fear in their employees. They don't have to shame people, you know, ridicule them. All of those negative behaviors are coming from a position of weakness, not strength. So it's important for the Leo person to really embrace that which is noble when they are interacting with others. Leo is ruled by the sun, and they can be incredibly warm, and they can be kind of the center where other people are orbiting them, because they are very charismatic. And so a Leo person, I think, a lot of times inherently knows this about themselves, but if they don't have that strength within them, and that's the tarot card associated with Leo is the Strength card. If they don't have that within themselves, they will kind of fall back on the darker or lesser ways of doing things, including using those kind of tyrannical methods. And also, I just want to say, too, that because Leo's a fire sign, there can be anger management issues, especially if they have a Mars in, like, for instance, Taurus or something, or Scorpio. They can be very frustrated by, and if their moon is in Leo, too, especially, they can be very frustrated, or sun sometimes, because they maybe if their ambitions are not being realized within their own business, or if they're working for somebody else, and there can be that eruption that occurs with all fire signs. They have fiery natures, you know. If you're dealing with somebody that is a petty tyrant, That was a term coined by Dr. Wayne Dyer, that's where I first came across it. But if you're working for somebody like this, you have to understand that they feel they probably feel powerless inside. And so they're using these negative tactics thinking that they bring success. And you have to decide whether or not you want to allow that toxicity into your life. Sometimes people are always hoping that others will change. And I always think that's foolish, unless it's like one specific habit or something. And otherwise, they're just like really great people. But if they show themselves to be bullies, chances are they feel like that's the only way they can get what their needs met. So you have to kind of take it or leave it sometimes. Number 5 is arrogant and snobbish, feeling better than others, and, the A-list, wanting to be part of the A-list. And this is kind of also superficial, because a lot of times the arrogance is coming from comparing themselves or comparing yourself to people based on looks, based on their achievements, or the families that they come from or that you come from. And there's that need for Leo to be royalty and to be seen as a winner, as someone who is, somebody who is successful and part of the beautiful people, the in crowd. And that kind of thing is immature. I mean, that's how I look at it, but it's not spiritually wise. It can lead them to try to present themselves as better than other people and put down others for what they consider to be inferior traits. Underlying all of that, though, to me, is insecurity, because I feel like anyone who is truly secure within themselves is not going to go around putting others down. So there must be something that feels uncomfortable for the Leo that they feel compelled to do that. And sometimes it may even be underlying envy towards another person. And that person, there may not be anything that stands out that would garner that kind of envy. It may be on a very subtle level within the Leo person, that they may even envy somebody's demeanor as being very placid, very serene, and feel like they don't have that within themselves. So it could be, being envious of somebody's light. If they think that somebody is happy and they don't feel happy, they may try to down somebody else and pick out flaws in order to feel better. And again, the ego is to blame for that. If you're a Leo who feels that that is, what you tend to do, and you may not even, consciously know that you're doing it, maybe later you realize, that's what I'm doing. Really do a lot of self-inquiry. That, to me, is one of the best things you can do, because you can do this anywhere. When you have an interaction with somebody and later it kind of leaves a bad taste in your mouth because you feel like perhaps you didn't handle yourself in the best way possible, then really question, what was it that triggered me? Why was I mean to this person? Why was I acting better than them? And they noticed it. And I don't want to hurt people. Why did I hurt them? And trace it back to something that you felt like you needed to be superior in that moment. If you're dealing with a Leo person who consistently tries to make you feel inferior, that's really, to me, a destructive trait. And if you come from a background where that was done to you earlier on, then that can just kind of reinforce low feelings of self-esteem. So a person like that may be annoying to other people. It can be dangerous for you. So you have to really make choices in who you keep your company with that are more in alignment with who you want to become. And people that will, more times than not, see the good in you. Number 6, jealousy, possessiveness. And this was the one that I had to look up because I was stuck on the 6th one. I've changed the order because I was rearranging some things. So just like Taurus, just like Scorpio, both fixed signs. You know, the other fixed sign is Aquarius, and Aquarius is known as not being jealous. But the other 2 fixed signs tend to be jealous in their own way. Now, the difference between jealousy and envy is that jealousy is dealing with people. And jealousy for a Leo comes when you feel like you're not the center of somebody else's attention, and maybe something else has kind of taken your place. So an example would be you're a Leo male and your wife has given birth, and now she is just showering her attention on the baby and you feel ignored. Now, someone may come along who's insensitive and they say, "Are you kidding me? I mean, what kind of an adult doesn't know that the child has to be given the attention?" This Leo male is completely immature to be jealous of his own child. But this is something that may come up in a pretty commonplace sense for many Leos. This may be the one thing out of all the sketchy things I mentioned that you, if you're a Leo, may agree with, that you have this tendency to feel kind of slighted if you're, if somebody else takes that center stage from you. And the same thing would happen in work. You're like the it girl or the it boy. Someone else comes along and that, people think is great too. And you feel like all of a sudden you don't matter anymore. And if you were a Leo who is the firstborn child, this can really, you can really get triggered in this way because that's what happened to you. You were the center of attention. You got to kind of bask in that glory. And then all of a sudden, your sibling came along and it's like your rival. And then it was totally different from then on out. And so, again, strength within yourself, understanding that you are not the only person that exists in this world, that other people have the right to attention and being, complimented and acknowledged for their talents. And it doesn't take anything away from you. And also to be willing to share the spotlight and not be so covetous of that. And when you're, so I guess it's funny that I was putting it in that context because it was almost like I was talking about attention getting, needing that attention. This was supposed to be more about possessiveness, but I feel like possessiveness extends beyond just romantic relationships. You can be possessive of your friendships. You may have a friend, and if she or he meets another person and they start spending time together, that may really bother you. And you have to learn how to cope with that. And the coping skills involve seeing your ego for what it is. I believe there is a healthy ego, but I believe that the ego can be a tyrant, a petty tyrant in our lives if we do not gain control over that part of ourselves. If you're dealing with a Leo who feels like you have given your attention to somebody else, let's say it's your child, and you're like, you got to be kidding me, this person's jealous of his own child. Point out that this is what you think is going on and say, I get it. I understand, understand how they feel and reassure them that they are still amazing, that, it doesn't take away one iota of admiration that you have for them. And the last one is drama queen, king, drama king, drama queen. And again, these can also be parts of that show off, part, or the narcissist, and that can come across as being full of drama. But really, and jealousy too. Really, Leo is theatrical, okay? Whether they think of themselves that way or not. So there's always this larger than life quality. And Leos, as all fire signs, are very enthusiastic about life. And Leos want things to be larger than life. And if they don't have it in the moment, they may create it. And that's where the trouble begins, because it's important for Leos to pursue their passions, whether it's as a hobby or whether it is as a career. And it's interesting because the fifth house that they rule, that Leo rules, deals in part not only with creativity, but with hobbies and things that people do for fun. So it doesn't have to be that your outlet is through career, where you're maybe acting in plays, local plays or something like that. It doesn't have to be your professional actor, but you may want to do that as a hobby. Or perhaps you are a wonderful singer or guitar player. Go to open mics, You don't have to say that if you're not doing it professionally and making money that it's a worthless thing to do. Of course not. Indulge in your creativity so that it becomes an outlet for some of that need for that specialness in life. And, throw a party. Have fun. But don't get involved in the lower manifestation of this, which is drama, creating drama in your life. Create passion. Passion is positive. It's not draining your life. Drama drains you, and passion enlivens you. So whatever it is that is something that makes your heart sing, do more of that. Anything that drains you, do less of that, whether it's a person, place, or thing. And Leos really do help us to see that life is grand, and that's the beautiful thing about them. And they can be the catalyst for all of us to feel the specialness of life and that the colorful qualities of life. That some people are just living these drab existences where it's 9-to-5 job, going home, and they're in that routine, and they're not even smelling the flowers, They're just in that narrow mindset. And the positive expression of Leo is showing the grandeur in life, that life can be just amazing. Okay, well, that's what I have for Leo. And if you like this kind of analysis, please check out my readings, the astrological ones, specifically. And, I have natal chart interpretations and stuff like that. I'm going to link my natal chart interpretation to give you an idea of this kind of reading that I offer. Anyway, take care. Bye. This is fun. Bye.